A resounding round of applause for His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Before we go to the next segment, we'd like to acknowledge His Imperial Majesty Oba Frederick Obateru Akinruntan Olugbo of Ugboland, Ilaje, Ondo, and His Excellency to be the Governor-elect, Mr. Abdul Rahman Abdulaziz, Governor-elect of Kwara State. Okay, so everyone has heard of the famous Lagos blueprint. 2 decades ago, 20 years ago, we had a similar scenario where there was a government in waiting about to be inaugurated but had been elected. Now there's a product that came out of deliberations and policy discussions that our celebrant Asiwaju Bola Tinubu assembled the best minds around Lagos and around the country to come together to have a serious and rigorous thought around the issues that confronted Lagos at the time. Now, we have put together a documentary of some of the key actors that we call the usual suspects, explaining some of the behind-the-scene moments during what was the formation and implementation of the blueprint. Multimedia, the blueprint documentary will play now.
About this time 20 years ago, federal capital machinery, cultural revenue. The newly elected governor knew he had to think outside the box to chart a strategy to address the multifaceted issues confronting Lagos. Assembling a team of the best minds in the public and private sector and academia, a concrete set of ideas and proposals emerged from between January and May 1999 that culminated in what later became referred to as the blueprint. 2 decades on, Lagos has become the 5th largest economy in Africa, and those ideas and proposals in the blueprint shaped much of what Lagos is today. Some of these ideas were audacious and revolutionary, others unpopular, but Asiwaju was both a visionary and was courageous in advancing his convictions. Critical to conveying and implementing the blueprint was a team. This year, we have asked some members of that team for their reflections on the Lagos blueprint and Asiwaju Bola Tinubu's role in formulating and executing this vision for Lagos.
When the administration started 1999, again, we inherited a system whereby every single approval needed to go to the government. And you can imagine what a Herculean task that was. I recollect talking to Asiwaju about this, that granted, this is a system we've inherited, but I just didn't think it was tenable, that there needed to be a change. He spoke to 1 or 2 of the members of the bureaucracy who had been there before, and he was advised that, look, this just has to be the way. So I went back, reflected over it, spoke to some of my people, and came up with a memo, which basically gave approval limits to people within government. The honorable people more concerned with finance, like the Honorable Commissioner for Finance, Mr. Waledu at the time, the Chief of Staff in the Governor's Office, and myself. And took the memo to Asiwaju. And believe me, within 15 minutes, he signed it off.
I've never known him to do politics when it comes to governance. He was always very straightforward. And like they said, listens to superior arguments and he gets it done and signed.
He has an uncanny ability to detect talent. And assign people appropriate roles. To me, that is spiritual strength. Identifying people and assigning them suitable responsibility that will bring the best from them and the best in them. For the first time, he appointed, for the first time possibly in the history of the state, commissioners were appointed who were not necessarily Lagos State indigenous, who were not Lagos State indigenous. So, for example, I was appointed Attorney General from Ogun State, while he was also from Ogun State, Commissioner for Finance. Shola from Osun State, Commissioner for Works. The Chief of Staff at the time, Lai Mohammed, from Kwara State. So there was, I think, that of course, Daily Alaki was information and strategy from Ekiti State. So, that recognition, first of all, that Lagos has abundant talent, and that they can come from anywhere. Eventually we had also the likes of Bola who from Delta State, who became the first commissioner for lands. Ben Akapo is the budget and planning commissioner, and he seeks to surround himself with those who can challenge him. People who not just agree with him. He enjoys debates, serious and oppressive debates, virtually everything. Not only was he a good listener, a tireless listener, one of the first things I picked from him in those early days, those early days when he was governor-elect, was he said, look, I'm always willing to bow to superior argument. If you want to hear a superior argument, you have to be able to listen to all. You have to be willing to listen to them all. At that time, he got together a good number of stakeholders, included private sector people who'd been in government, members of the bureaucracy at the time, members of civil society, academia, and people who were relevant to charting the future course of Lagos. And over a period of time, those stakeholders were divided up into groups and worked on plans. After that, of course, there was a policy group which now distilled that information and then came out with what is essentially metamorphosized into the blueprint. Okay, and they distilled everything, summarized, and then came out with a blueprint for every single sector. Again, it's very interesting. It's necessary to say that some members of the policy formulation and your committees were made heads of important ministries, budgets, justice, chief of staff to the government, works, information, strategy, and among others, and finance. So the critical mass of about 5 to 6 members of the executive who, in the first instance, were in the policy formulation and development committee, ensured that one, a leadership core of the ESCO was developed, and through that, influenced the other members to be focused and committed to the framework developed. It was very critical at that time that the top leadership, and Ashiwaju in particular, was committed to ensuring that this blueprint was something that everybody imbibed and was committed to ensuring that it was implemented. Tinubu, in
myself assure you to constantly rallies the party, but maintain a very close relationship with the government. We used to meet with the government every day. And the government reviewed our performance. The ones of the estate and the government.
He stayed there and was committed to it. So by the time he finished, he knew what was going on in every single ministry with respect to what their goals and responsibilities were, such that when any proposals came to him for a certain thing to be done, the first thing he asked is it in the blueprint?
The blueprint has a very important component of the blueprint, was the justice sector reform. And we had very clearly outlined what that whole administration of justice reform involved in the blueprint. And that blueprint was presented to the governor, then governor-elect. And we all sort of agreed what the essential components would be. So when I was then subsequently appointed Attorney General, I already had been going into that office a very clear and defined blueprint for the justice sector, what we would do. As a matter of fact, one of the things that he kept saying was that we needed a judiciary of bright young minds who are independent, not a judiciary that could be controlled by the executive, because as he kept saying, when you're out of office, if you control the judiciary when you're in office, what are you going to do when you're out of office? So those who come next will then control it, and then you who used to control it then become, in some senses, the victim of the kind of system that you said. So he was very concerned about independence of the judiciary. And I think that one of the things that we're able to achieve with that, obviously, was the fact that Lagos State then became, in many senses, the benchmark, or the reference point for judiciaries across the country. Today, it looks, nice, and idea has gone up so much, etc., etc., etc. But the challenge just met along the way were phenomenal. And I think it is to the credit of Ashiwaju that he was happy to let this process play itself out. He didn't interfere. Basically, hearing it from independent people made a big difference as to how we were able to resolve many of these things.
Justice that developed laws and policies, judicial policies that aided the generation of revenue to finance, that was at the heart of the revenue service itself. The autonomy granted the IRS department to the information management that ensured that the people of the state were regularly informed of the activities, vigilated, partnered with it.
Actually, I was somebody who put his full support behind revenue generation, and he took a very bold step in that he took the Board of Internal Revenue out of the Ministry of Finance, and by the time he was leaving office, we had reached 8 billion a month, which basically was at par with the federal allocation. And by 2015, Lagos State was generating 23 billion per month, which was about 3 times the federal allocation. So we have reached the position whereby even without any federal money or revenue, Lagos State could fund its own activities.
It was not shy away from any assignment. It's quite good. Nothing like this. Pursued whatever it is and what I do. It's such a good story that you wonder where it is. He's the
when we came in, the federal government had had a procedure of, first of all, deducting a certain amount before putting the money into the pot to be shared amongst the states and the federal government as a federal allocation. They have what we call first line charges. He is the one who is the then Attorney General that led all the other states to victory against the federal government. And that's a fundamental move in favor of federalism, in favor of the autonomy of the states financially. I was riding with him in his car coming from Marina, coming to Alausa to the office. There's a place just outside the office where people used to stand and protest, you know. So this day we passed by the place and there was nobody at all. Not a soul. So he looked at me and said, am I still there? I think, you know, for him, controversy and in many cases, what many saw as difficulties and all of that, he actually, I think he actually relished those things and came at them with in my view, such enthusiasm that you sometimes wonder, I seem to enjoy controversy, and he seemed to try, you know, even when he was confronted with what many would consider very difficult situations. Very good. I wish you a very happy birthday, many happy returns, and many more years of service to the family, to the state, and of course, to our beloved Nigeria. God bless. Ashiwaju, happy birthday. I know you are someone that tends, and particularly a day like this where you have so many around you, that there's a tendency for you to keep networking and seeing how to take the envelope to a different level. But please, for a change, take it easy today, relax, enjoy your day.
You started it all. Happy birthday. Don't work too hard. You just come out of another success story with the last election. God bless you.
Assure you, happy birthday. As your days, so shall your strength, so shall your wisdom, and so shall your favor with God. In Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
We are all children, so to say, but please take time off to be the real family man that you should be. I wish you a good celebration of your birthday. May you live to see the Nigeria of our dream, fulfilling Africa and the black race in how best to govern ourselves and be part of the committee of successful nations and people in the world. Happy birthday, Ashiwaju. May the good Lord preserve you for us.
Happy birthday, Ashiwaju.
Happy birthday, sir. Now it's time for us to invite our iconic celebrant, the man who's larger than life by every description you can imagine, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, the Jagaban of Bogu, to give his remarks.